I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my mind. The moment when I discovered that the house savings, the cornerstone of our shared dreams and the secure future we had painstakingly built together, had been spent without my knowledge on a lavish getaway for her affair partner. In those first 100 heartbeats, every hope I'd clung to about our life together shattered into fragments. The betrayal cut deep, leaving me numb yet igniting a fierce, burning resolve inside me. I would reclaim my destiny. I vowed then that if she could recklessly squander our hard-earned future for fleeting passion, I would build a new life on my own terms, and that life would include a house that I'd buy without her ever knowing. For years, I had invested every ounce of sweat, every sacrifice into our home savings, envisioning a future of stability, comfort, and shared memories. I recalled evenings spent poring over financial plans and weekends visiting open houses, dreaming of a place where our laughter would echo in sunlit rooms and our family would grow surrounded by warmth. I believed that our joint savings were not only a financial buffer but a testament to our commitment, a symbol of the life we were meant to build together. I trusted her implicitly, assuming that every decision regarding our future was made with mutual respect and shared purpose. But, as I later discovered, that trust was as fragile as it was misplaced. It began on an ordinary afternoon that quickly turned extraordinary. I had returned home from work, my mind still buzzing from a long day filled with deadlines and the small victories that punctuated my routine. As I stepped into the quiet of our house, the familiar creaks of the wooden floors and the soft hum of the air conditioner greeted me, but something was amiss. There, on the counter in the kitchen, lay a series of bank statements and a hastily scribbled note. My hands trembled as I scanned the documents. The numbers leaped off the pages. Our savings, meant to secure our future home, had been completely depleted. In their place was an itinerary for an exotic vacation. One that, I soon learned, was intended for her and a man I'd never even heard her mention before. The cold shock of betrayal, mixed with an overwhelming sense of disbelief, sent my heart racing. I felt as though I had been robbed of not only our money but of the very dreams we had nurtured together. In that agonizing moment, everything I believed about our life together crumbled. I had trusted her with our most precious asset, our financial future. A future that promised a safe haven, a place to call our own. Instead, she had chosen to invest in a fantasy, a secret escapade fueled by infatuation and disregard for our shared responsibilities. The betrayal was complete, and I was left alone with the wreckage of our promises. I sank into the worn armchair in our living room, staring blankly at the bank statements, my mind whirling with a mix of anger, sorrow, and a dawning realization that nothing would ever be the same again. As the initial shock slowly gave way to a numb clarity, I began to process the enormity of what had happened. Every number, every line on that statement, was a brutal reminder of how deeply I had been deceived. The money that we had painstakingly saved over years, money that was meant to secure our future home, was now gone, spent on a trip that had no place in the life we had planned. I questioned every conversation we had shared in recent months. Had I missed the subtle signs? The furtive glances when she talked on the phone, the whispered conversations late at night when I was in the other room, had those been warnings that our future was no longer a joint endeavor? Each memory, once innocuous, now seemed to point to a slow, creeping betrayal that I had been too blind or too hopeful to see. In the solitude of that evening, amid the silence of an empty house that once symbolized our shared hopes, a spark of defiance began to kindle within me. I realized that I could not allow her reckless actions to define my future. If she had chosen to gamble away our savings for a momentary thrill with her affair partner, then I would reclaim my life, and I would do so on my own terms. I made a decision that night. I would secretly buy a house, a home that would be entirely mine, built with the very funds I had safeguarded long ago. It was not an act of petty revenge but a bold assertion of my independence, a declaration that my worth, my dreams, and my future were not to be controlled by her whims. The days that followed were a blur of intense introspection and decisive action. I retreated into a quiet corner of our home, gathering all the financial documents, bank statements, and legal records that confirmed the grim truth. I called my financial advisor to verify the transactions, and each confirmation reinforced the painful reality. Yet even as I processed the betrayal, a part of me felt a spark of vindication. I had taken precautions long before this moment, measures that had ensured my personal financial security, even as our joint funds were misappropriated. That foresight, though born of caution and a fear I had never openly acknowledged, was now my lifeline. It meant that, while our future together was in ruins, I was not left destitute. I had the means to build something new, a future that was entirely, unequivocally my own. That night, as I sat in the dim glow of our living room with a journal open before me, I began to write. Every word poured out like a catharsis, raw, unfiltered, and filled with a determination to reclaim my identity. I wrote about the nights we had dreamed together, the plans we had made, and the quiet sacrifices I had endured. I wrote about the profound betrayal of seeing our savings vanish, and the shock of realizing that everything we had built together was being dismantled in a single ruthless act. With each line, I vowed that I would not be defined by this betrayal. I would rise, rebuild, and transform this deep pain into a new beginning, a future where my dreams, my values, and my worth would be celebrated without compromise. I made a promise to myself: I would buy a house without her. I began researching neighborhoods, consulting real estate agents, and poring over property listings online. Every home I saw stirred a mix of emotions: nostalgia for what we had planned, but also a fierce determination that I could create a sanctuary that reflected my true self. I envisioned a modest yet elegant space, a haven where I could start anew, a home that would be built on the foundations of my own labor and dreams, free from the betrayal that had once threatened to shatter me. I began to draw up plans, set budgets, and take cautious steps toward a future that was defined solely by my own choices. As I delved deeper into planning my new life, I felt an emerging clarity that came from accepting the painful truth. I understood that my wife's actions, however devastating, were a catalyst, a force that forced me to confront my own neglect and to reclaim the parts of me I had long sacrificed. I was determined to transform that emptiness into a space of possibility, to build a new home and a new life that honored my own worth. The anger and sorrow that had once consumed me gradually gave way to a steely resolve, a commitment to rise from the ruins of our shared past and to create a future that was entirely my own. In that long, silent night, with the divorce notice as a stark reminder of what had been lost, I found a strange comfort in the realization that sometimes, endings are simply the seeds of new beginnings. I closed my journal, feeling both the weight of the betrayal and the promise of renewal. I had chosen to embrace the pain, to let it fuel my transformation, and to step forward into a future where my dreams were mine alone. A future where, even in the absence of what once was, I would build a life filled with purpose, resilience, and an unwavering belief in my own worth. In the immediate aftermath of that shattering night, when the weight of betrayal pressed down on me like a relentless storm, I found myself oscillating between a profound sense of loss and a burgeoning resolve to reclaim what was mine. The silence of our now empty home was both suffocating and oddly liberating, a blank canvas upon which I could, at long last, redraw the boundaries of my life. I knew that if I was to move forward, I had to confront every raw emotion head-on and then channel that pain into a force for radical change. The first few days were a haze of shock and quiet despair. I spent hours alone, wandering through the empty halls that had once buzzed with our shared laughter, now echoing with the ghosts of promises broken. In those lonely moments, I pored over every financial statement and legal document, each page a stark reminder that our house savings had been so carelessly squandered. I confirmed, with a sinking heart, that every penny we had painstakingly saved was gone, lost to a secret trip that was not meant for the future we had envisioned together. And yet, in the midst of that devastating realization, I also recalled the secret decision I had made long before. I had cashed out my share of our retirement funds, a prudent move born from a quiet, nagging doubt about our shared future. That decision, once a painful admission of my own misgivings, now shone as a solitary beacon of hope amid the wreckage. It meant that while the savings meant to secure our house were gone, I still had the means to build something entirely my own. I dove into an intense period of self-reflection and planning. Each morning before the world stirred awake, I laced up my running shoes and set out into the cool, pre-dawn air. The long, solitary runs became a daily ritual, a time to clear my mind, to process the torrent of emotions, and to reaffirm that I was not defined by her actions. With every rhythmic stride, I could almost feel the bitterness and despair being washed away, replaced gradually by a fierce determination to rebuild my future. The quiet solitude of those early hours allowed me to confront the many layers of hurt and to begin piecing together a new vision for my life. I began to think not about what was lost but about what I could still gain, and more importantly, what I had always wanted for myself. Back at home, I transformed my study into a war room of ideas and possibilities. I spread out old photographs, bank statements, and financial records across a large wooden table, letting the stark evidence of betrayal confront me in full. I traced the timeline of our savings, the moments we had celebrated each small deposit, each milestone reached, and I allowed myself to mourn the future that had been stolen away. But alongside that sorrow, I began to craft a plan. I wrote furiously in a new journal, outlining the steps I would take to secure a fresh start. I mapped out my goals: to purchase a modest home solely in my name, to invest in new opportunities, and to create a life that was defined by my own ambitions. Every word on those pages was a declaration of independence, a promise that I would not let her reckless choices or the sting of betrayal dictate the rest of my life. With my newfound determination fueling my actions, I immediately reached out to a trusted financial advisor. We spent long hours analyzing my assets, rebalancing my portfolio, and exploring new investment strategies that could secure my future. I learned about diversification, about the importance of having multiple streams of income, and about the potential in emerging markets. Each consultation reinforced the realization that while our joint savings had been misappropriated, I still had the power to rebuild and even flourish. I began to channel my funds into ventures that resonated with my personal values and long-held passions, and every small gain in my investment portfolio felt like a victory, a tangible counterweight to the betrayal that had once threatened to leave me destitute. Simultaneously, I turned to my professional life with renewed intensity. I had always taken pride in my work, but now I was driven by a need to prove to myself, and to anyone who doubted me, that I was more than the sum of someone else's deception. I threw myself into challenging projects, pushing the limits of my creativity and strategic thinking. Late nights at the office became a battleground where I fought to elevate my small business, to transform it into a thriving enterprise that would serve as undeniable proof of my capability. I restructured operations, refined marketing strategies, and even spearheaded new initiatives that positioned us for growth. Every successful project, every nod of approval from a colleague, was a small, hard-won triumph that slowly rebuilt my confidence. I felt the sting of that night fading into the background, replaced by the vibrant reality of progress and achievement. Yet, amid these practical steps, the emotional journey was equally intense. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving scars that sometimes ached with the memory of that empty house and the cold finality of the divorce notice I had found. There were nights when I would lie awake, haunted by the image of our savings vanishing, and by the realization that the home we had dreamed of was nothing more than a cruel illusion. On those dark nights, I turned to therapy, seeking the guidance of a counselor who specialized in relationship trauma and personal reinvention. In our sessions, I learned to confront the multifaceted nature of my pain, acknowledging the anger, the sorrow, and the lingering sense of abandonment, and to transform those emotions into the fuel for my future. My therapist helped me see that the betrayal, while devastating, was also an opportunity for growth, a catalyst that forced me to rediscover my own strengths and reassert my identity independent of our failed union. Each session was a slow peeling away of the layers of self-doubt, a step toward understanding that my worth was not defined by the loss of shared dreams, but by the intrinsic value of who I was as an individual. As the weeks turned into months, my journey of reinvention began to yield tangible results. I reconnected with old friends, people who had seen me before the shadow of betrayal fell over my life, and their support was a steady, comforting presence. We met for long walks and heartfelt conversations, discussing not only our shared past but also the bright possibilities of the future. Their words, full of empathy and encouragement, reinforced my belief that I was not alone, that my journey was one many had walked before me, and that every setback was a stepping stone to greater things. In these interactions, I began to see that true friendship is built on honesty and mutual respect, and that my value was recognized by those who truly knew me. I also began to explore creative outlets that allowed me to process my emotions and express the complex tapestry of my experience. I returned to painting, an old passion that had long been buried under the weight of everyday responsibilities. Each brushstroke on a blank canvas became a means of catharsis, a way to translate my inner turmoil into vibrant, raw art that spoke of both pain and hope. I even started a blog where I shared the unvarnished truth of my journey, the shock, the heartbreak, and the slow, determined climb towards self-reclamation. The act of writing, of turning my experiences into words that others could read and relate to, was both healing and empowering. Feedback from readers, many of whom had faced similar betrayals, reinforced that my story was not just mine alone. It was a universal testament to the resilience of the human spirit. On the practical front, I set in motion the plans for my new beginning. I began researching properties in neighborhoods that resonated with my evolving sense of self. A modest house that I could call my own, a haven where every wall and window would reflect my independence. I met with real estate agents, toured countless homes, and even consulted with architects about designing a space that would serve as both a sanctuary and a launchpad for my future endeavors. Every decision I made was imbued with the quiet confidence of someone who had reclaimed his life from the wreckage of betrayal. I was no longer waiting for someone else to validate my worth. I was actively shaping my destiny, one careful, deliberate step at a time. All the while, I maintained a disciplined routine that balanced professional ambition with personal healing. Mornings were devoted to physical renewal, a time to run, meditate, and set a positive intention for the day. Afternoons were reserved for work, where I tackled challenging projects and forged new partnerships with a determination that was both fierce and focused. Evenings were a time for reflection, a period when I would sit in the gentle glow of a desk lamp, write in my journal, and savor the small victories of the day. This rhythm of life, though demanding, gradually restored a sense of balance and purpose. I began to see that every moment of pain was accompanied by a potential for growth, and that the journey to self-reclamation was not a sprint but a marathon. A long, winding road where every step was a testament to my resilience. As my financial, professional, and personal worlds began to coalesce into a new reality, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. My business ventures were slowly regaining momentum, bolstered by innovative strategies and renewed energy. I was learning to trust my instincts again, to see opportunities where once I had only seen obstacles. Every successful meeting, every contract signed, was a small victory that pieced together the new mosaic of my life. A life that was no longer defined by betrayal, but by the unwavering determination to create my own future. I also deepened my involvement in the community, joining support groups for individuals who had faced similar heartbreak. At these gatherings, I listened to stories of loss and redemption, and I shared my own experiences with a raw honesty that resonated with others. The collective strength of these communities, the shared understanding that even the deepest betrayals can give rise to new beginnings, filled me with a sense of purpose. I realized that my journey was not just about rebuilding what had been broken. It was about inspiring others to find their own path to healing and to embrace the promise of a future defined by self-respect and independence. One crisp autumn evening, I attended a regional conference on resilience and personal empowerment. The atmosphere was charged with energy, a room full of people who had overcome their own demons and were eager to share their triumphs. When I took the stage, I spoke of the night I discovered our savings had been squandered, of the crushing betrayal that left me staring at an empty house, and of the long, arduous process of reclaiming my identity and my future. I spoke of the small victories, the long runs, the late nights at the office, the quiet moments of introspection, and of the new goals I had set for myself. As I finished, the applause that followed was thunderous, a collective affirmation that my journey, with all its pain and promise, was a story of transformation that resonated deeply with every soul in that room. In that moment, I knew that every tear, every setback, had led me to a place of profound strength. By the time several months had passed, the cumulative effect of my efforts was undeniable. I had re-established my financial security, rebuilt my professional reputation, and begun laying the foundation for a new, independent life. I was no longer shackled by the betrayal of a shared future, but free to pursue dreams that were entirely my own. The new home I was in the process of purchasing symbolized more than just a physical space. It was a declaration that my life, my efforts, and my self-worth were now defined solely by me. With every passing day, I felt a quiet joy replacing the lingering bitterness, a deep sense of fulfillment that came from knowing I had reclaimed not only my finances but also my identity. I woke up one crisp, clear morning in the new house that I had built, my sanctuary of rebirth and resilience, and for a long, still moment I just stood there, taking in the soft light that spilled through large windows onto freshly painted walls. Every detail of this home, every carefully chosen color and piece of furniture, symbolized not only the tangible reclamation of my future but the triumph of reclaiming who I truly was. I remembered the day I discovered that our house savings had been squandered on her secret trip with her affair partner, a day that had left me numb, betrayed, and utterly determined. And today, as I sipped my coffee in the quiet solitude of a space that I now owned entirely on my own terms, I felt that old sting transformed into a deep, serene power. I had chosen to rebuild from the ruins, and with each brick laid in my new home, I was writing the final chapter of a story that had once been marked by betrayal. In the early months after I walked away from that crumbling chapter of our life, I struggled with a torrent of emotions. The emptiness of the house we'd shared, the harsh glare of the divorce notice I'd found on that fateful night, and the knowledge that she had spent our hard-earned savings on a fantasy, all of it had once threatened to consume me. I'd spent countless nights pacing the floors, questioning every moment, every decision that had led to that devastating revelation. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to understand that every betrayal, every tear shed in the darkness, was a necessary part of my transformation. I had been forced to confront my own vulnerabilities, to sift through the rubble of shattered trust, and to rediscover a version of myself that I had nearly forgotten existed. A version filled with strength, determination, and an unyielding resolve to build a future that was entirely my own. I immersed myself in the process of rebuilding both emotionally and practically. I threw myself into my work with a fervor that was both cathartic and empowering. Every late night spent refining business strategies, and every successful project at the office became a declaration that I was not defined by the actions of someone else. My small business, once a quiet passion I nurtured in the background, began to take on new life. I secured fresh contracts, innovated with ideas that had been simmering in my mind for years, and gradually earned the respect of colleagues who once dismissed me. Every accolade and every nod of approval was a small victory, a silent rebuke to the betrayal that had tried to crush my spirit. In the process, I learned that true success is measured not in the validation of others, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. At home, I transformed my living space into a haven of creativity and solace. I spent weeks remodeling the new house with painstaking care, choosing decor that reflected my inner journey, artwork that symbolized resilience, vibrant colors that spoke of hope, and comfortable, inviting spaces that echoed with the promise of new beginnings. I created a dedicated study where I could work on my writing, a small studio where I could paint, and a sunlit reading nook where I could lose myself in books that inspired me. Each room became a physical manifestation of my transformation, a place where I could reflect on my past without being haunted by it, and where every corner reminded me that my future was mine to shape. I also reconnected with the world around me in meaningful ways. I reached out to old friends, those who had seen me at my best and supported me through darker days. We met for long dinners and quiet coffees, reminiscing about the past while also dreaming about what the future might hold. Their unwavering support was a balm to my wounded heart, a reminder that while one chapter had ended painfully, a new one was unfolding, filled with promise and endless possibilities. In these gatherings, I discovered that vulnerability could be a strength, that sharing my journey not only helped me heal but also inspired others to reclaim their own lives from the ashes of betrayal. Socially, I began to build a new network, a community of individuals who valued authenticity, resilience, and the courage to start over. I attended support groups for people who had experienced similar heartbreak, where stories of betrayal were met with empathy and understanding. In these spaces, I found that my experiences were not isolated. They were part of a larger tapestry of human struggle and triumph. Listening to others and sharing my own raw, unvarnished truth gave me the strength to see that the pain I had endured was both universal and surmountable. These interactions reaffirmed that my journey of self-reclamation was not just a personal battle, but a shared victory of the human spirit over adversity. Amid all this, I continued to nurture my professional ambitions with relentless energy. I enrolled in advanced courses on entrepreneurship, attended seminars on innovative business strategies, and even took on mentoring roles for younger professionals who looked to my journey as a beacon of hope. Every challenge I faced at work, every negotiation, every pivot in strategy, was approached with the hard-earned wisdom of someone who had seen the worst and refused to be broken. I transformed setbacks into opportunities for learning and growth, and each success, however modest, was a building block in the reconstruction of my identity. My career began to flourish, not just as a means of financial stability, but as a testament to my resilience and capacity to redefine what success meant on my own terms. As the months turned into a full year, the cumulative impact of these changes began to shape a new reality for me. A reality where I was no longer defined by the pain of betrayal, but by the triumph of rebuilding and reinvention. I purchased a modest home with the money I had secured, a place that now stood as a symbol of my independence and self-worth. Every wall, every room, every carefully chosen piece of furniture in that house spoke to the journey of transformation, a journey marked by both profound loss and equally profound growth. I invited close friends and family over, sharing stories of my journey and listening to theirs, and I found that these moments of connection healed old wounds and created new bonds. The home became a sanctuary where I could celebrate my victories, reflect on the lessons of the past, and plan for a future filled with endless possibility. In this final phase of my transformation, I began to see the true meaning of self-empowerment. I recognized that the betrayal I had suffered was not an end but a catalyst for growth. The sting of my wife's deceit had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, and in doing so, had revealed a depth of strength I never knew I possessed. I learned that the true measure of a person's worth is not determined by the actions of others but by their ability to rise after a fall, to rebuild from the ruins of shattered dreams, and to move forward with dignity and purpose. I no longer allowed the past to cast a long shadow over my future. Instead, I embraced it as part of my story, a story of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, a triumphant reclamation of my own destiny. One crisp autumn evening, I found myself standing on the porch of my new home, looking out over a quiet neighborhood bathed in the golden glow of sunset. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me here, a journey filled with moments of despair and quiet determination, moments of loneliness and unexpected hope. I remembered every tear shed in the dark, every setback that once seemed insurmountable, and every small victory that had slowly built the foundation of my new life. In that reflective silence, I realized that I had reclaimed not only my finances and my home, but my identity, my worth, and my future. I made a silent promise to myself then, a promise to never again allow the actions of others to dictate my destiny, to always value my own dreams above the shallow judgments of those who once tried to diminish me. I vowed to live a life defined by authenticity and independence, where every decision was made with confidence and every challenge was met with unyielding resolve. I had transformed the pain of betrayal into the fuel for a future filled with possibility, and with that realization I stepped forward into the unknown with a heart full of hope and a spirit emboldened by the lessons of the past. Now, as I sit here in the quiet comfort of my new home, surrounded by the tangible evidence of my transformation, every carefully chosen decor, every cherished memento of hard-fought victories, I know that my journey is far from over. There will be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt and struggle, but I am ready. I have built a life that is mine alone, a future secured by my own hands, and a legacy defined not by betrayal but by the courage to rise, rebuild, and redefine my own worth. Every scar, every painful memory has become a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is a light waiting to be ignited. This is my story, a saga of heartbreak transformed into empowerment, of betrayal giving way to a triumphant reclaiming of my identity, and of a future built on the unwavering belief that I am enough. I have learned that the power to shape one's destiny lies not in the hands of those who deceive and disappoint, but within the unyielding resolve of the human heart. And as I step boldly into tomorrow, I do so with a deep, abiding gratitude for every lesson learned, every challenge overcome, and every moment that has led me to this place of profound renewal. My destiny is mine to create, and I will continue to build my future, one courageous, determined step at a time.